So, have you ever looked at a dandelion popping up in your pristine lawn and just instantly thought, I need to get rid of that right now? Well, what if I told you that by reaching for the weed killer, you might actually be tossing out a batch of premium, nutrient-dense plant food? It really begs the question, noxious weed or your garden's absolute greatest secret? Let's totally rethink what we know.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely shift your perspective on what is probably the most common yard plant out there. We're breaking down exactly how to make a dandelion tincture for your plants. We'll take this perceived nuisance, this annoying weed, and transform it into a highly valuable and completely free garden resource that'll basically supercharge your soil. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the power of dandelions, the science of dynamic accumulation, a step-by-step tincture recipe, application and pro tips, how to avoid common mistakes, and finally, look at some real results from real gardeners. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The power of dandelions.
Now, what exactly is a plant tincture, or a weed tea as it's sometimes called? Basically, it's a fermented liquid fertilizer that unlocks and releases a plant's stored nutrients right back into a bioavailable solution. It's kind of like a magic trick. Through a really simple fermentation process, bacteria break down the plant cells of the weed and release all those amazing locked-up nutrients into a liquid that your garden plants can just instantly absorb. The bottom line we really want to hit here is this. Stop throwing away free plant food. We all know people spend so much money on synthetic fertilizers, right? But harvesting these weeds instead of poisoning them or just tossing them in the yard waste bin is recycling at its absolute best. You're literally taking nutrients that already exist right there on your property and putting them back exactly where your vegetables and flowers desperately need them. Section 2. Science of dynamic accumulation. Okay, before we jump into the recipe itself, we really need to understand the science of why this works. Have you heard of a dynamic accumulator? It's essentially a plant with a deep taproot that acts like a miner. It mines and stores essential subsoil nutrients, things like potassium and calcium, right up in its leaves. Dandelions are pretty much the poster child for this. You know that incredibly long taproot that makes them so incredibly frustrating to pull up? Well, it's actually doing you a massive favor by aerating hard-packed soils while pulling up vital minerals from deep underground, minerals that your regular surface-feeding plants just can't reach. To really wrap our heads around just how powerful these little plants are, remember this number, 42,000. That is the amount of potassium in milligrams per kilogram found in dandelion leaves according to a 2020 study by the University of Vermont. To put that into perspective for a second, that is a massive storehouse of nutrition, literally off the charts compared to the nearby grass species in your lawn. When we break down the data from scientific studies, like the ones from the University of Vermont and Unadilla Community Farm, the nutritional profile is just incredible. Alongside that 42,000 milligrams of potassium, which, by the way, is absolutely crucial for your fruiting crops like tomatoes, strawberries, and melons, dandelions also pack 15,000 milligrams of calcium. That's what builds strong plant cell walls. Plus, they bring up phosphorus to promote healthy root development and iron to boost overall plant vitality. Honestly, this is heavy-hitting plant nutrition. Section 3. Step-by-step tincture recipe. So let's get to the fun part. First, you just need some really basic supplies. Grab a standard 5-gallon bucket with a loose-fitting lid, your fresh dandelions, and we're talking roots, leaves, flowers, the whole shebang, some rainwater, and a mesh strainer or cheesecloth. Now here is a massive pro tip from our sources. When you pull up those fresh dandelions, leave the dirt on the roots. Actually, don't wash them. That soil adds highly beneficial microbes to your water, which totally kickstarts the whole fermentation process. Also, make sure you use rainwater if you can. The chlorine in regular municipal tap water can actually kill off those good bacteria, and we definitely don't want that. All right, let's walk through the exact steps to assemble this brew. First, harvest your dandelions, keeping that soil on the roots like we just talked about. Next, just chop or tear the weeds roughly. Smaller pieces mean they break down way faster. Third, pack your bucket tightly with those weeds, filling it as full as you reasonably can. After that, submerge everything in your rainwater, but make sure to leave a few inches of headspace right at the top of the bucket. Finally, cover it loosely and just set it aside to ferment. Super straightforward, right? So what's the timeline look like for this? Well, on day 1, you've just got your freshly submerged weeds. Fast forward to around day 7 and you'll hit active fermentation. Now, I gotta warn you right now, it is gonna smell pretty awful. We're talking a very strong kind of manure-like odor. But don't panic. That foul smell just means the magic is actually working. By day 14, those weeds will dissolve into this dark brown mush, meaning your brew is finally ready to strain. From there, you have about 60 days of maximum shelf life for your stored strained concentrate.
Section 4. Application and Pro Tips.
Now, please pay close attention to these two main application methods because both require some serious dilution. If you apply the concentrate undiluted, you will severely burn your plant's roots, and nobody wants that. For root drenching, you want to mix 1 part dandelion concentrate to 10 parts water and apply that directly to the soil right at the base of the plant. Now, if you prefer a foliar spray, which gives a nice light nutrient boost directly through leaf absorption, you need an even weaker mix. Go with 1 part concentrate to 20 parts water. You'll want to spray that directly onto the leaves early in the morning so the plant can soak it all up before the sun gets too hot.
Section 5. Avoiding common mistakes. Let's quickly run through some things you definitely should not do. First off, do not use a tight lid on your bucket. The crucial point here is that fermentation naturally creates gas, and that gas has to escape. If you snap a tight lid on there, you're literally building a pressure bomb of incredibly smelly liquid in your yard. Next, avoid tap water with chlorine, and absolutely do not harvest weeds that have been sprayed with chemical herbicides, or you're just going to spread those exact chemicals right back onto your garden crops. Finally, avoid applying this directly to ready-to-harvest vegetables, mainly because of the smell, and keep any leftover mush away from your compost bins because it is an absolute magnet for slugs. Section 6. Real gardeners, real results. I actually love this quote from a Reddit user named Shooter McGav. They wrote, 1-to-1 with brown sugar and add a bit of LABS, chop the heck out of it and mix. 5 to 7 days later strain. No stink, no anaerobic bacteria infecting your plants. This is just brilliant anecdotal evidence. By adding equal parts brown sugar, this gardener speeds up the fermentation to just 5 to 7 days and completely bypasses that notorious smell we warned you about. It just goes to show you really shouldn't be afraid to experiment with this process and make it your own. And hey, if you want to level up your brew even further, our sources suggest mixing it with other dynamic accumulators. A fantastic, beautifully balanced blend could look like 40% dandelion for that potassium punch, 30% stinging nettle to provide a huge nitrogen boost for your leafy greens, and 30% comfrey for calcium and other trace minerals. By combining all of these, you're basically creating a perfectly balanced, multi-purpose superfeed for your entire garden. Section 7. Conclusion and disclaimer. Really quickly, before we wrap things up, I do need to share a standard disclaimer. This explainer is for informational purposes only. Every single garden is totally unique, so please use your best judgment, follow standard safety practices when you're handling fermented liquids, or consult with a gardening professional if you have any specific concerns about your plants or your soil chemistry. The core takeaway here is super empowering, honestly. You aren't just giving your plants a quick snack for today. You are actively building long-term soil health. By taking what was once considered a persistent problem, weeds invading your space, you now possess the know-how to turn it into a sustainable, highly effective, and completely free upgrade for your soil. I promise you, your garden will absolutely thank you for it. So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Next time you see a dandelion popping up in your lawn, are you going to reach for the weed killer or a bucket? Get out there, start brewing, and we'll catch you on the next explainer.